that's not just the CDL. You said buses. So you got to stand on that. Hold on.
Oh, no, Metro definitely do that.
Yeah, again, I can't speak to Louisiana, but my cousin, he was homeless, he was getting doctors and nurses, and it was no high school sweetheart situation. He met these women as adults. It was no...
He was a homosexual.
Well, a city bus driver made $19.20 an hour.
People couches, and he
was a prostitute.
Can we not make this conversation about finances? You notice that as soon as niggas have this combo, it always direct to combos. I mean, about this money situation. If you don't got no fucking money, you ain't got it. Let's just move on. Let's talk about the topic and everything else. Try not to talk about the finances. I'm curious to see how far y'all can get.
You know we talking about the finances in reference to them?
Yeah, I've been in this room. I'm quite sure I'm going to talk about other things. As soon as I start talking about the finances, it's going to go to that. If you're a black man and you don't make no money, then that's that.
You know, we literally talking about the pay scale in different states, bro. That we just...
And look, and that goes to what? The finances, correct?
Right, but it's not like we talking about which one of us. We're not talking about the profession but we're not talking about a profession that me and him occupy, so it's not going
I'm not even
me and him
talking about finances, period.
Yeah, it was just relevant to, you know, the...
And why don't you mute me, Judge? I don't know what's going on.
He muted the whole room, nigga. Get out your feelings. But what I'm just trying to say, Jay, I don't know why we gotta police, like, the conversation that way. We wasn't going at each other disrespectfully. We were just having a disagreement that I literally just pulled it up. They make $58,000 a year. I was gonna tell him that and give him information, and he was going to be like, okay, you're right, because I got it from the state board, from the state website.
Hey, look, this one thing I'm gonna say when it comes to and we speaking about that situation. I got family that all of them make up well over 100,000, bro. And the reason why I say that they get endless overtime, it's not DOT regulated, and usually they're at about, I think they maxed out in 3 years. I think they had like $38 an hour.
So with all due respect, you saying, bro, that's still like so people are overworking themselves, and that's not
cool.
No, it's not cool. But that ain't what they don't make that. They overwork themselves to make a living. Is what you having to tell me. But going back to the initial. Yeah, but going back to the initial
point. I'm going to let you go ahead, though, brother.
But that's what I'm saying. Going back to the initial point, the reason why, and that's why I was really trying to get to what Judge was saying. It's crazy to say we shouldn't be talking about finances when the entire point of the conversation is high-value women, which is finances, to niggas who are low-value, which is finances. Like, that's why I didn't really understand you saying you didn't want to talk about that, Judge. But, I mean, all right.
But I think Tay is right. I think interracial dating is the option. You know, I think that if everyone really wants to level up and be hypergamous, you're going to have to probably marry white or maybe Asian.
Absolutely. I don't have no problem with it.
I didn't say that that's what you should do. I'm saying that's what I'm seeing. But I don't think black people should be doing that in person.
No, I think we should be doing. I think black women should especially do it because there's too many of y'all and it's not enough of us. So you guys are going to have to do something. It's still creating black families because it's still going to be Negro kids at the end of the day, just bitch.
Okay. But, yeah, you something? Judge, what's good?
Hey, what's going on? I'm just listening.
I just want to say this conversation is pointless. There's no point to this conversation. I hear these stupid conversations on this app all the time. It's meaningless, doesn't improve anybody's situation. It's garbage.
Yeah, keep banging. Yeah, I'll say...
It's true!
Hypergamy, you're going to have to date white women. Look, bro, there's dusty white women, bro. There's dusty white women. And in order to date the white women who are, like, lit like that, there's levels to that white girl shit, bro. Like, there's white girls...
This guy, because like that guy Nassar, like he was actually putting arguments forward, but then it just got to the point. I'm like, yo, this guy has been speaking non-stop without making a single fucking coherent argument. I literally like, yo, move on from this fucking guy. Like, he's not saying anything, like literally nothing, and they just kept saying the exact same thing over and over and over again.
Welcome to Clown House.
Oh.
Haven't you been to Diego and Princessia's room? It's the same syndrome.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah.
The Jews.
So you didn't engage with them? You just listened?
Yeah, I just want to listen to the arguments. I mean, they really didn't say anything, and everything that they were saying was rationalistic. And I've just trained a GPT prompt that has every objectivist piece of literature that you can think of, and it is like next fucking bro. Like this is like next level though.
So wait, if you said rationalistic, what is the opposite of rationalistic? Irrational?
Well, I mean, technically it would be empiricism.
And empiricism is empiric?
I mean, it seems counterintuitive to think that's the opposite. I do agree with Wizard. It does seem, what he says would seem to be the opposite.
Why are you agreeing with Wizard?
Well, the whole thing is like it's either in your mind or you can see it. That's like the...
Well, isn't that
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I was going to say objective, subjective, subjective, objective, meaning the subject versus the object. And many people confuse the two.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. Either it's objective or subjective, and empiricism and rationalism both fall under the category of subjectivism. It's just different theories. It's different theories that lead to the same conclusion, basically. So, like I adhere to the objective theory of knowledge, which is the objectivist epistemology, because it says that there's objects found, there's objective facts independent of your mind, and we have the capability of grasping those facts through reason. Whereas empiricism just says we can look at those facts, but our sense perception is kind of it's the only way that we can know knowledge, and it disregards the faculty of reason. And then you have rationalism, which basically says no, our senses don't really work. Everything is just in the mind, so we know reality through our mind.
That's right.
And then but then it basically boils down to complete subjectivism. Yeah.
How come your thing says 18 plus?
I have no idea. I put a picture of my dog.
It's just a bug. Everybody's getting that.
Those fucking bastards don't want me showing my
dog laying on the bed.
So let me ask you this question: does a dog have both a subjective and an objective nature?
No, it has an objective nature.
It doesn't have a subjective nature?
No, it doesn't.
Well, that's just your opinion.
Okay, I got it for you guys. Okay, life is just simple. It's just Pavlov versus Schrodinger. We're cats versus dogs, and it's conditioning versus help me.
See, the subjective in the dog is the mystical nature of a dog. I mean, if you ever look at a Great Dane or some weird-looking freak dog, it's a little bit more mystical. But a dog backwards is God. So the Kabbalistic dog backwards is the now, meaning that the dog, or not so much of a cat, but a dog always demands your attention and says, take me outside, I gotta piss, I gotta shit. So it brings you back into the all-important
This
now.
is some real dogma
Exactly.
here.
It's dogma.
Very impressed.
See, that's why I say it's subjective, not just objective. And that's why your opinion is that of an atheist, because you have no salt in your stew, no alchemical process. You have no spirit, Simon. You're like a zombie human.
I'm like a zombie human. I don't even understand get to the dust to come to that conclusion. I'm just saying there's no gods. Like,
I know. I'm saying there's a word. There's a word called God. You don't like books, words, or numbers. That's what you don't like.
I don't like books, words, or numbers.
What do you think God is? God is a word.
So,
yeah, God is definitely a word. I'm not denying that. I'm saying
Countdown clock is starting to epistemology. Go.
Epistemology. That's a record.
Hold on,
That's a record.
Yakov. Let's make a show that Simon's dog is so whatever. That they got an 18 plus.
I'm trying to figure out why he has one. Can you leave the room and come back? It's a bug in the app.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make you guys.
Yakov, if you touch him, then you can see that
I'm not
his
touching
dog
him.
is playing.
There you go. Oh, it's a cute dog. I don't know why that's not suitable for work.
I mean, I could ask the same question.
I don't know why last time it was.
I could ask the same question and say, is a man or a woman subjective and objective, or just objective, meaning that it's the same argument about the dog. A human will always bring you back into the now.
That's right.
There's no technical terms that are needed. No epistemology. No other large technical terms.
I didn't use any. I literally just said a dog is objective.
I know, but it's not. It's also subjective.
Okay, well, what makes a dog subjective?
There's an esoteric meaning in the word dog or God. God backwards is dog, and forward is go or goad. Or I'm just saying, in the words themselves, it's a wordplay.
It's just in English. What about the other languages?
Well, oh, somebody kicked me. Couldn't take it. They couldn't take it. Okay, this is Wizard. They kicked me, Dr. Chris, those dirty dogs. Cool, clean, and a love machine. Cool. CCL. Cool, clean, and a love machine. Cool, clean, and a love machine. Mr. Laid Back. Oh, Dr. Cool is here. The CCL has arrived. Cool, clean, and a love machine. Oh, look at Gary Warren. He's like a ginger black guy. You don't see that every day. He must be from some Nubian tribe. Where are you from? Huh?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't see what every day. I didn't hear you.
I said, you have an orange beard?
Yeah, it's a child.
Yeah, it starts out red, but it lightens up in the sun a lot of time.
Did you dye the beard?
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, never mind. I thought you were like one of those rare African gazelle types. A Nubian.
No.
Mr. Laidback, that we're getting started with the Kabbalah. We're doing powerful meditation. The word God is thought backwards, but also forwards is go. to go, to keep going, striving for greatness. All communication is hypnosis. You do know that, right, Laidback?
No, I'm not don't know much about Kabbalah. I've heard about it, but I wouldn't even. When I came into the room, I wasn't even listen.
There's no convincing me God exists. It's like I said, it's an epistemological error. It's not on. No, I already beat the record. It's not up for like. It's not up to evidence to prove God. It's just up to like people's methods of thinking.
Yeah. What if you almost die, and then you have an experience with God, and then you come back to life? Will you believe in God?
No, because it has anything to do with belief. Belief is another method of thinking.
Will you concede that God exists?
No, and I already technically died when I was like 16. 16 years old. I technically died.
See, that's why I say you don't like words, numbers, or books. It's not even... The fact that you can't prove God is irrelevant. You have an opinion.
God and dog is the same fucking word.
It's backwards. What I'm saying is in English, he couldn't take it. Simon is a bitch. Simon is a little child. Simon is a child. Simon is a low IQ dog, child, and a moron. Simon is a low IQ dog, child, and a moron. Okay, this is a roast room for Simon. Okay, this is Simon is a low IQ dog. He's a child and a moron. That's what this room's about.
That's literally a costume, right?
Right. I mean, I don't engage in it as a signal, but I understand your perspective.
I mean, what do you think I'm saying if I put on some like, big boots and a big belt with a big belt buckle and a big 10-gallon hat? What do you think I'm signaling there? I'm not signaling that I'm like, some not country cowboy, right? That's not what I'm signaling there.
You might be signaling that you don't have any cattle.
What's the paraphernalia that you put on, Caleb, that is not a signal? Everything we put on is a signal, even if it's not something that is signaling a leadership role or an authoritarian role or anything like that. But religious garb is a signal, right? People who wear a cross around their neck signals.
If you go to Comic-Con in San Diego, they also do symbols when they party in their costumes.
You bet. And I dress up like a captain every chance I get. Put on a Starfleet uniform. Okay. I love cosplay. Nothing wrong with that, right?
As long as you're doing it for fun and fun alone, and you're doing it responsibly, everything's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I think maybe I'm reading it. I think there was something pejorative about the word signal you used, but perhaps I'm incorrect.
I think, to be fair and to kind of cycle it back to the topic also, originally the topic being, who's shaping reality around faith and facts. I think that there is this concept of social pressure, and I think, to loop it back to this idea of the way that religion spreads, social pressure is a critical vector there. It goes both ways, and I think that the rituals and traditions and structures that are put in place, of which wardrobe can be one, these are critical to shaping reality and, inculcating people, whether it's from a young age or elsewhere. And I think, Khalid, I don't think that's a bad faith interpretation. I think that's a fair reading of any sort of traditional or religious practice, right? That's part of the point.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think sometimes in these conversations and maybe I'm just a little hypersensitive to it, right? I think sometimes when some folks say those things, they mean something pejorative and not descriptive. And so maybe I'm just in the space between those things.
And that's, by the way, I totally hear what you're saying, and I think both things can be true. And I think that people can say that and have a tinge of, or a negative connotation associated with it. But I think that, nevertheless, for those of us that are here for good faith conversations, I'm super curious how you think about these things and how you think about the purpose of those things. For when you don that religious paraphernalia or you do these things, there's obviously a venerative component. But what is do you ever examine the other implications of them?
What other implications?
It's psychological.
Okay,
when you put on a tefillin, you are that is a manifestation of a very complex psychology. I mean, until you actually even read books on it, if you're gonna discuss it or criticize it and have no understanding whatsoever about it, I mean, you can ask him directly because he does practice these things and he knows about these things.
Right. No, I appreciate the interjection because that's exactly what I was asking. Tefillin's a great example. When these things are donned, and just to answer the question I was asked about my own question, in Catholicism, for instance, a bishop's mitre has both a religious symbolic purpose, but it also has a very important purpose around authority. And that purpose is not lost on the bishop when the bishop leverages said mitre. And so I was curious, less so about the tefillin, because that is to the person who interjected, that does have a very specific ritualistic purpose. I'm curious about the authoritative purposes, Caleb, of any of the garb you put on and how you think about that.
It depends when. Like, for example, when I do a wedding, right, I'll wear a prayer shawl. And I don't have to, but I do that for those authority reasons. But in general, right, Jewish leaders don't have any separate obligations than the rest of the people, right? So the authority comes from other things. The authority comes from knowledge in Torah or teaching or, other scholars who have said that person has authority. There aren't really those kinds of, I don't think there's an analog to the mitre in Judaism that would say that person is of authority.
So, I mean, the whole reason I'm bringing it up is simply to point out that I see it as being no different than yesterday I wore a Darmok and Jalad Live Tanagra shirt. Today it's a Rick and Morty shirt. The whole reason that these prints are on my shirt is because at some level, I'm trying to say something when people look at me. I think that's what we're doing in all cases.
That's peacocking.
If it's a prayer shawl or a Rick and Morty t-shirt, we're trying to communicate something when people look at us, right?
I went out for St. Patty's Day. I wore a big green hat. I'm trying to draw attention to myself because I'm peacocking and want a woman.
Right, so T, I think let me friendly extension of that, right? It's not just you're trying to get somebody to notice what you're trying to communicate, but actually this is an outward expression of an inner state of mind, right? That I do something on the outside to reflect what some psychological state or a mood or something like that, right? So and that's communication is always bi-directional.
So I guess that's right.
I agree.
I guess just to kind of take it from that point to this deeper point around the shaping of reality, the shaping of facts, and how this sort of authoritative structures are pretty critical to that. I'm not going to dox myself, but if you knew my last name, you would know that I both have a very much a Jewish upbringing, as well as had an interesting exposure to Catholicism. And in Catholicism, you have the Rosary and prayer beads, right? And that is a very meditative tool in that particular religion, which is very different from the purpose of a bishop's mitre. And the reason why I was bringing that up is this idea of authority is very, very critical to shaping why people believe certain things. And we see this in many aspects outside religion, but in religion it's been really reinforced. And so I guess, Caleb, that's where I'm super curious about, to your point, there's not as much of that used in Judaism, at least in modern Judaism. And so, how does authority get conferred? How does sort of this kind of deference get set? Because there definitely are rabbinical practices and, within you go ahead. I think you get where I'm going.
Yeah, I totally get where you're going. I mean, one thing to notice, just to point out, is that rabbinic authority is diffuse. We don't have a pope. We don't have these kind of hierarchical, very, very scaffolded sort of types of authority. So that's one thing to point out. The authority is based on your expertise in the tradition, right? And your knowledge to be able to decide law and things like that. And all of that is conferred by the people who came before you. And their authority is from the people that came before them, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's all about the chain of tradition, which I think sometimes, and not only, right? And you can be an extreme innovator and then sort of have communal approval, right? There's I think a couple of different ways there. I think that works in many disciplines, right? You can your PhD advisor confers on you the authority on your research, right? Because you're in the chain of transmission of that knowledge, and then you're expanding and adding to it and commenting. So I think it's something like that. If that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. Absolutely, and it also aligns with my understanding of the scholarship associated with the rabbinic tradition. So that completely makes sense. I think the follow-on question I would have would be, how do you think about your role as a person then that is helping others interpret a complex text and, in a sense, shaping their understanding of reality? Because I think there's a lot of responsibility conferred into that. And you were talking about the scientific tradition as part of it, but in the scientific tradition, you actually have experiments to also reify that. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, after you answer that question, I'm sorry. Just after you answer that question, I see two people raise their hand. Wizard, I'll get you in there right after the answers, and then Diego, you could go. Go ahead.
I'll be honest with you, Michael. I haven't thought about that idea that I help shape people's reality. I suppose it's true. I could probably be more serious about that implication of sort of my work and study with people. I've never really thought about it, but I think my approach tends to be there are parts of the tradition. There's some wisdom in the tradition, and if I can bring that to bear on somebody's life circumstance or current events or something like that, my authority comes from my knowledge of the Torah. It doesn't come from anything else. So I think I try to position myself as, here's a nifty phrase, right? Guide on the side and not sage on the stage. That's kind of where I position myself.
Well, hey, look, I really appreciate appreciate it. I know we want to make space for other conversations, but thanks for the conversation, and again, really enjoy hearing your perspective on how you're navigating this.
I appreciate your thoughtful questions.
Okay, Wizard, you got the floor, and then Diego, you go.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb is a rabbi, so he's like, he's. But what my point is like, my question for Caleb is, do you find not being mystical or taking like a mystical approach to be more helpful for your congregation and yourself, or sometimes do you find yourself wanting to go mystical for the sake? Is it basically when somebody gets too far left, you go far right to bring them back into balance?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It's always who's in front of me, right, and what they're asking about. I mean, the other component to my work is pastoral care. So when somebody comes and they have a question about, can I do this, can I do that, they're actually asking a pastoral question as well. And so they're asking something about them, meaning in their life, right? They're not just asking what to do and what not to do. So that's another opportunity where I get to input in somebody's life, some wisdom from the tradition. And yeah, I float back and forth from mystic to rational, and sometimes combine the two. Yeah. No to even two people who would come to me the same one day after each other with the same exact question, I might answer them differently because they're different. They're coming to me with a whole different background.
Let me ask you one more question. What is the history or interplay of Hebrew and English in particular, since we're corresponding in English? Can you actually trace the historical, the history, with the language, with the Jewish people, and then its influence on English? Because if you study Kabbalah and the gematria, and Hebrew is numbers, and then you can do all this like wordplay with it. So to me, I'm just saying, it seems like the Hebrew sigils or hieroglyphs are ancient, and even right now in English, many of our words are a result of this Kabbalism or Jewish language or Hebrew. Do you since you're multilingual, do you often find yourself doing like gematria or saying, whoa, this is an interesting correspondence or correlation, or have you ever looked into the history of language and Jewish impact on English, etc.?
No, I've not looked into that very deeply. I'm sure there are people who have. I don't think there's, just off the top of my head, I would be suspicious that there's a big impact from Hebrew to English. I do like gematria here and there when it's like cute and is like the kind of like coda on an argument. I don't use it to like prove or demonstrate anything, but I will use it to like illuminate something that's already there in other places in the tradition. And at the same time, I think there's something like exceptionally magical about how gematria works, and in my mystical brain, those things can't be coincidental. Like there is something there. It's just too amazing. So again, I kind of float. I'm the Ramban and the Ramban, like all the time, back and forth.
Something you said there reminded me of one of my favorite koans. A student once came to the master and said, "Master, it has been said that sometimes when asked the same question, you will give a different answer. Are you aware of this?" And the master said, "No." Later that day, a different student came to the master and asked the master, "Master, it has been said that sometimes when asked the same question, you will give a different answer. Were you aware of this?" And the master said, "Yes." In this moment, the student was enlightened.
Yeah, I like that.
The reason why I bring up the history aspect is in Kabbalah with the crown and the king and Lord Adonai and the temple, it seems to correspond well with a monarchy. And Jews having diaspora and been exiled in multiple countries, whether it's France or England, I'd say that the philosophy of Kabbalah and Judaism corresponds well with monarchy. So therefore they're accepted in a monarchy and they play a function within that society or government, like Benjamin Disraeli, etc. I'm just saying it seems to be, I see a high correspondence between at least monarchy and Kabbalism, or feudalism even for that matter.
think Diego had his hand before.
Yeah, Diego, you can get in there now. I think they're finished up.
Thank you. Actually, I got a point. Apparently, you're the only one answering, right, Carlo?
I mean, I don't need to be the center. I mean, anybody can jump in.
All right. To be honest, I was just in this very moment, I was reading the Deuteronomy section and come across a few contradictions. May I ask you?
Yeah.
Yes. Stay with me. Deuteronomy. In Deuteronomy 24, verse 1 to 4, divorce is allowed. But in Matthew 19:89, Jesus says that God never really permitted divorce except due to human stubbornness. My question is, how can God give a law into the Deuteronomy, but later Jesus says the law was never truly His will, just like you don't take it seriously.
Well, I'm not a New Testament scholar, so I couldn't answer from that perspective. I guess I would say it like this. If Jesus is a rabbi in the rabbinic tradition in some way, then Jesus has the ability and the authority to interpret the law. And so he's not doing something inappropriate, possibly. That's my best answer. Because I mean, it's a good question about is early Christianity.
You think he has the right to violate God's commands, right?
I think he has the right to interpret it and apply it to his own time
I don't know.
In other words, say it this way: the fact that there is, I would say, here's another idea, right? The fact that divorce is permissible doesn't mean it's required.
All right.
So that's another way to fix that. That's another way to fix the contradiction, right? Nobody has to get divorced.
Do you really think your answer is permissible?
Pardon me?
Forget it. Just one more thing.
Okay.
Deuteronomy 20, verse 60 to 18, commands the Israelites to completely exterminate nations in the promised land, including women and children. How can a loving God command genocide?
Who says that God is loving?
What? Come again?
Who says that God is loving?
It's written, and I don't know. I'm asking you.
But it says God is also a God of war, not just a God of love. I mean, you're giving one statement.
Also true.
So? Who's got
So I think this is a question.
The kind one, the sadistic one, the kind one, which one is it?
Well, so you're asking a theological question, right? How can you have, right? And the theology of that God is all loving, stands outside the Bible, right? I think if you were to try to write a historiography of the God of the Old Testament, I'm not sure that you would come out with the kinds of theologies that we have to say God is all loving, all knowing, all powerful. I'm not sure you would get that.
I agree, because even on Viltrum, we have that.
Brother, hold on. They was in the middle of a conversation. Let them finish.
Just like
I just thought I had to get my sense in,
Finish our conversation.
All right, sorry, but from this one down, I'm looking at it's just more like a sadistic entity than just a loving one.
Right. So you have to decide: are you committed to the text, or are you committed to the theology?
I committed to my mind. Rationality, just logic.
No, I understand. What I'm saying is if you're asking a textual question, then I would use the rest of the text. If you're asking,
do you accept such action? Just to exterminate all of the nation, including women and children? Is it okay to you?
No, it's not okay with me, but it's in the book. That's what I'm saying. You're asking.
That makes it acceptable. Because
No. I didn't say it's acceptable. I said it's in the book.
What do you think?
It's good versus.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think that the kind of, when we say God is all loving, I don't think it means that there's no punishment in the world, or that there's no, consequence or retribution. I don't think it means that.
That means 50-50, you think that's acceptable, but...
Diaco, the big word you're not using is law. Law and God are so synonymous, it's unbelievable. So, that's what you're not using, is law. And if you're referencing Israel-Palestine, which I assume you are, you still are not using the word law in your lines of questioning.
It's not, that's difficult. Just admit the killing, it's a bad thing, that's it. It's so simple.
Who's not going to admit that killing is bad? We all know that's bad in this room. Do you know it's bad?
But just because the God said, it's not so bad, right?
Okay, so where in the scripture does it say God says it's not so bad to kill people? I've never seen that. Have you ever seen that?
So here's the proofs. The proof's in the pudding right here, okay?
I've never seen that. You ever seen that?
If the story of the Bible is true, right, and when the Israelites entered the land, they didn't kill everybody, right? They also had a problem with the command. They didn't, right? So there's your answer right there. People can obfuscate God's command all the time.
God's command. God always confused as second thing.
Well, so do you want? So then I'm asking. So then, do you think people should disobey God's commands or not?
Of course not. I'm not talking about people. I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about the God.
Wasn't God mad that they didn't kill all the people, and didn't he tell them to go back and do the deed and finish it off?
Caleb,
that was just one group of people.
Okay.
See, Diaco, you are kind of operating from a limited, basis, in my opinion. There's a lot of information out there that you may not be aware of that would contradict, your sentiment. And if it is that you think that in Israel a genocide is happening right now, I can assure you that is not what's happening right now.
I don't know if he was going to that.
Can you please come again?
I'm saying, are you not coming from the perspective that there's a genocide happening in Palestine, that this war of all these innocent people dying? I mean, this is what you're referring to right now. You're not actually just being theological. You're trying to cue it into the geopolitical situation now.
I don't have an answer for that, but I don't know.
Look, I'm very comfortable saying genocide is always bad. Genocide is always bad whether God commands it or not. I don't think that's objectionable.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at the Bhagavad Gita...
No, just most youths today, do not follow many of Deuteronomy's laws, yet they still consider it sacred, If God's law is eternal, why have they changed, why haven't changed over time?
The Bible, the laws are eternal, but a legal system is never static. A legal system is always, by definition, open to interpretation and subject to interpretation. It's the only way that you can get a law to actually work in a real living society. And that's where the rabbinic tradition comes in, to explain how to apply the law.
In another life, the parents should note in some circumstances take the children, their own children and stone to death, But my question is, if this is not a moral law, why is it still considered part of the God's holy book?
Because we don't change that book. We apply it in different circumstances, but we don't change the text of the book. We don't change the text of the Constitution. We add text to the Constitution. No. There are some things that a original legal documents cannot foresee about novel circumstances in the future.
But Diaco, you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of these books? What is the goal of the book? What do people use the book for? They use it for governance, for rulership, for self, and for society.
There's no good or useful thing, you can't see any, good and useful things that, I just...
Well, that's why I say you don't bring up the word law at all. You don't talk about law at all. I mean, what is your opinion on the law?
You cannot jump from one point to another, I'm looking for, in this book, I'm looking for a just and loving God, the kind one, not the white one, not the...
I know, but what are you? Diaco, are you just and loving? I mean, I think God is. Are you just and loving?
God, no, that's
well,
I claim that I'm a God.
Anyways, I think most of these rooms are just ESL rooms for people trying to learn, the English language.
If someone else wants to speak.
I mean, I will say that language is what's shaping our reality. And symbols are languages. It's a language. All communication is hypnosis. So if you look at a tefillin and you look at your chakra, kakra, your kalkma, I mean, I don't know what that stuff says. I'm not that learned. I'm trying to get there. But I'm studying language. And if you want to have more love in your life, if you want to have more equilibrium, balance, stillness, joy, harmony, the best way to do it is through language. You have to have the words. You can't even have the thought without the word.
So unoriginal.
Know that there's interesting things about tefillin, that they hit various different pressure points that are well known in Chinese medicine. That they actually are pressing on various different things, and that there actually is this real effect going on with wearing tefillin. Interesting.
Well, it's like medical device technology back in the year 300 BC. When these Greeks were wrapping themselves up with leather, they're affecting their blood pressure. I mean, there's got to be a medicinal aspect to it, But the point is, back to language, is that it says the spirit is in the word. So on this app, you can go into these theist-atheist debate rooms, and what you're really listening to is people complaining about books, words, and numbers. And that's really what's happening, is you have a lot of angry people who are angry at books, angry at words, and angry at numbers. And in Diaco, that's why you're going to the book of, what was the book you were referencing? Leviticus, I think. Anyways, that's my point, is you're a complainer. And I hate to say this, but I love roasting complainers. So I want to invite you to my barbecue, Diaco. Honey and I, Honey Badger here, we regularly hold roast rooms, and I hope you will come. And I will give you coleslaw, some beans, and a cold brewski on me, buddy.
Catch me dead in the same room as you.
It's funny, I know a Zen koan about this guy named T. He's very low T.
I
know a Zen koan about a guy named T.
I thought you were
He's
going to
very
talk
low
about
T.
or something like that. That's laughing.
That would be funny.
I just want to loop it back to the very beginning when people were talking about tefillin and authority, and then I brought up cosplay and Comic-Con. The whole point of religion is to make it fun. And that's the law. These 3-letter words just keep coming up. And if you don't know how to be in a flow state, well, you gotta make fun. You gotta have fun. That's how you do it. And if you're complaining about it, well, then that means you're not doing it. I suggest you try it and see if you like it. If you don't like it, go read Green Eggs and Ham and realize you don't like it because you haven't tried it yet.
surefire way to know that somebody is completely full of shit on Clubhouse when they say the point of X is Y.
That's just your opinion, but you're low T. What do you know?
Roast has begun.
That's just your opinion, but you're low T. What do you know?
So I got a question. If facts are unedible, why do beliefs move nations? If faith is true, why does it need defending?
Communication moves nations. Look at what's happening on Instagram with the government and the Border Patrol. I mean, they are spending most of their time creating messaging, videos, showing us what they're doing. They know the power of communication. They think there's an impact there. And that's what moves nations. It's the communication.
Yes, and I would say that's like a feature of the human brain. The human brain doesn't care about facts. It cares about survival. And so it'll lie to you.
So if people's words have no power, why do y'all think they keep speaking?
Who said people's words have no power?
I'm just asking a question.
I reject the premise, right?
Oh, okay, you can reject it. It's not up to me. I understand why you're thinking like that.
Yeah, I just think people have great power with their words, like demonstratively. I think that if you look at Donald Trump, he has influenced millions of people with his words, right? He obviously has great power.
I mean, that's Hermes, that's Mercury. It's a technology. And we use words to describe our reality, but it is a large language model. And that's why religion is a useful tool for people that want to succeed in life, because they are expanding their vocabulary. That's why I say a lot of people on this app are complaining about words, numbers, and books. And they're wasting your time, sucking your energy from you, telling you about their complaints about words, numbers, and books.
Isn't that what you're doing right now?
Yeah, but I'm laughing about it. I'm having fun over here. You sound like you're, low T.
I'm giggling. This guy. I can't see it.
So, if people believe their message have impact, what actually are they trying to change?
They're trying to change themselves, but they don't know that. And that's what they should be doing. If you change yourself, you can change the world. If you want to make the world a better place, you have to make yourself better. And through words and communication, you can do that. There's really no other good way to do it. You can go to the gym, but if you don't read the book or you don't read books, you're not going to get the change you want. It is a psychological change, which is what people want, which is truly just self-actualization. It's integration. It is psychology and therapy. Most people need to do healing work, but they do not do it. They come here and they just complain about words, books, and numbers. They don't actually eat it. They just smell it.
Right, is a message that I don't always know it, but it's usually something I need to hear for myself. It's about every sermon I can.
So is it? If most people need healing but don't do it, what's stopping them? Ignorance or avoidance?
It's very difficult work because most people are so bored and lonely, they'd rather get the short-term dopamine feedback loop by just random conversations about nothing. To open a book and actually really integrate those concepts, those words, and have that psychological shift is very difficult for people to do because we have no patience. and we are screen addicts that would do 100 million miles of doom scrolling before one fat thumb opens one book. Instead of reading books, people come here to complain about books.
Honey, what do you think? You also think that we're a bunch of people who are just criticizing out of bias or boredom?
That's a great point, Wizard. So what would you say if we have no patient or driving screens? Do we really seek knowledge, or is it just a distraction?
People are looking for a distraction more than they are looking for the truth. And I think that's the truth.
There it goes. Honey, do you want to respond to Diego?
Sorry, I've been making tacos. I think everybody's had something worthwhile to contribute. I'm taking it all in.
And just for the full meta here, Wizard, right? You recognize in yourself when you're trying to get the dopamine hit, right? The thing about you is that, and I'm not trying to stroke your ego here, right? But like, your maximal self-awareness that you have, like when you're trolling, like, and you're fully in there, and you're like, yep, I'm doing it for this because I understand my psychology, right? And that's why you can point it out in others. In other words, you're not dumping on people. You're actually saying, I'm here to do the same thing too.
I am. I'm an equal opportunist dopamine addict. I do come here to dope up, but I hope that if I can be a nice person and maintain, decorum, then I'm probably more beneficial for people because they lack that self-awareness or knowledge of self-awareness, and it makes for a fun conversation. So if you know how to get to Paradise Island and somebody else knows how to get to Paradise Island, it's an interesting convo. But it's not always interesting when somebody doesn't know how to get there and they just want to essentially refute everything you want to say, as opposed to even giving me the opposite of everything I want to say. If you understand the theory of opposites, or dualism or non-dualism, or Taoism or Kabbalism, or unity versus non-unity, it makes for interesting wordplay. You need the pairing of opposites, in my opinion, to make most communication interesting.
I agree with that.
That's a great point. Okay, so just to shift it back to the title a little bit. So,
This is something with the sorry. Just a minute, if you allow me. Listen, I like ex-Muslim, and I left it behind because I do not respect the ideology that justify violence, terror, and insecurity. I don't think some people argue that all beliefs should be respected. I strongly disagree. I believe that only beliefs that uphold human rights and democratic values deserve respect. Any other ideology that opposes humanity and basic rights shouldn't just disrespect it. It should be confronted. You can't stay silent in the face of ideology that justify violence, terror, and insecurity. I believe fighting with this ideology is not only necessary but a moral obligation for all of us. That's my opinion.
So you're not in favor of Donald Trump bombing Yemen into oblivion, correct?
No, maybe.
Maybe? I mean, you're putting out mixed messages now.
Donald Trump?
Donald Trump. The orange one. The MAGA.
You don't like it? You don't like him?
No, I like Donald Trump. I think he's a master of communication, and now we are living in the Donald Trump podcast. I mean, it makes Joe Rogan's podcast completely inferior.
That's entirely mine. I didn't hear anything from Donald Trump or anyone else. That was completely my opinion. That's why I'm ex-Muslim. That's why I left it behind.
You left Islam behind?
Definitely.
Well, have you read Rumi?
My time as a Muslim is just like a stain in my life. I just during time I look back on it with shame and regret.
Well, you know, I'm not a Muslim, but I've read Rumi, the poet, the Sufi mystic, and I really enjoy it. So, you know, I wish you well. And, you know, if it was the biggest stain in your life, then it's only up from there. So, you know, I don't know, but it sounds to me like you complain about books, words, and numbers. You know, do you think you complain about books, words, and numbers?
That's what you it doesn't matter, you know, it's the Bible, you know, what is scripture, you know, you can name it, you know, Quran, Bible, you know, anything that justifies violence, Torah, and something that's bullshit, which is there in our scripture, you know, you have to challenge it.
But it brings it up. Diaco, that's the point of even having it in the book, is to bring it up in the now, which is now. Meaning that the Amalekites and whatever genocides that have happened in the books that you think there's a justification for, in my opinion, it's your opinion, but the point is, it's in the book, so we can debate it now to create peace now. The world does not always have to perpetually be in a state of war.
Holy and sacred, you know, these are just ideologies that can be here and debated, you know. Nothing is sacred, nothing is holy, you know, they're just a word.
I know, but the word is all important. The now is all important. Are you in the now, sir?
Wait, hold on. I don't want to gloss over what you just said, which was like really important. The things are in the books so that we can talk about them now. Not so that we can know something about history, but so that there's something about them now. Otherwise, why would I read it now?
Exactly. That's what I don't think a lot of people get when they bring up genocide debating. Is that it's there for a purpose. It's so we can try to obtain peace now. And the military-industrial complex and political chicanery and the insane history of human, you know, kind is insane. But there is that slim chance that we do get to nirvana now. And, you know, Trump, I think, is closer to that positive state of equilibrium than other people. I mean, the now is all there is. It is a compression of the future and the past. And there really is no future. That's the craziest thing, is if you look at past and future, the past is a hell of a lot more real than the future.